So let's just start off with the problem solving session. So here, now we are at the week 3 of the course, Understanding Ethnography, by Professor Nina Sabnani from IDC School of Design, IT Bombay. And I am the PMRF TA of this course, and so I'm Apeksha Gautam. Hi. And so we can just now start off like the last week we've covered the week 1 and week 2 of the course. We've tried to wrap up and to revise the course, and after that we just took some questions from the joinees who had joined the session, and then have tried learning and getting a sense of what ethnography is. So in the first two sessions, we have actually tried and like tried understanding how ethnography works. So it's not just there are no hard and fast rules when it comes to ethnography or any research method for that sense, but it becomes really important to understand that ethnography has some sort of characteristics, some sort of working rules, not rules, but yeah, soft lines, you can say that. And then those uh, procedures and practices and ideas have to be implemented when we are in the field. So moving on, we might just maybe accept joinees whenever they come in. Until then, we'll just start off with the week 3 of the course. So majority of the section of the introductory aspect has been covered in the week 1 and week 2, where the students actually get the essence of ethnography. Now we move forward to something that what we call the procedural aspect or the designing part of the ethnographic research. So in any research, we see that it is very important to first understand that why we are doing that sort of research, or why do we really need to do a study, or really do need to do a sort of a research. In that sense, we first need to have clarity in mind that we have a problem statement, or not if a problem statement, but a major, broad goal in mind that we would need to just answer for some people, would need to just like understand for the others, while some people might just want to get sort of an idea of what happens around them. So in that sense, after you get what after you understand actually in one sense what you want to do in research or a study basically, it is really important to map out the steps. So research or ethnographic research, for instance, is a very systematic activity. You cannot just move around and just form some vague steps and then go about it. You have to be very clear about what you are doing in an ethnographic study or a research, or any research in that sense. So primarily that once when you call it the designing part of the research, it becomes really important to first map out what steps that you're gonna perform, and next implement those. So first thing, in the designing aspect, we'll just try and understand how things go on in an ethnographic research. How do we plan an ethnographic research? What all concepts, what all aspects and points we need to keep in mind while we are doing an ethnographic research. And these may overlap with many other forms or methods of research as well. But some aspects are quite, we would say, primary to ethnographic research. So, yeah. Now, let's just move on and see what all we've covered in the week 3. So, yes. Now, understanding ethnography, so problem session 2, this is last week we got the problem session 1. So, we should start off by actually understanding what goes on. So, in an ethnographic research, it is really important, as we have seen in the last week's problem solving session, that the idea of going into the context and going to the field, performing the field work, doing the groundwork are of huge importance. You cannot call a study an ethnographic study unless you go to the ground itself. You cannot call an ethnographic study the ethnographic study, or you may not call it a study an ethnographic study if you perform a study in controlled environments. Also, you cannot call a study an ethnographic study if you do not keep in mind the participants involved in the study. So, the major two aspects, the very basic and what do we say, the fundamental aspects that are important in the ethnographic study framework are the participants and the field. So, since we've discussed a lot about the field work, the field, the participants, and all that in the previous week, we're just going to move forward with what can happen um, in the designing aspect of the ethnographic research now. So, groundwork, when we say, we really need to have a solid plan before we enter the field. We cannot just move to the field thinking that we will find some aspect and just um, we will get a broad idea, a broad sense of the field. Like in the last week's description that I said, there are two types of descriptions. There are two types of studies that one can conduct. One is a thick description, and the other one is a thin description. In an ethnographic study, you really would not want to do a thin description because what you're trying to do in a research is something that is quite focused and which is sort of deep. And a thick description, you do not cover a lot of aspects together, but you try and move deep into the concept, into the phenomena, into the scenario. So, in that sense, uh, when we talk about groundwork, it is really important that we plan the groundwork. Now, so ethnographic study being primarily associated with what we call as people and knowledge and the ground, it becomes really important that we keep these points in mind. So, this at this point, we first need to see that how are we designing a research. So, designing the research. Just a second. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Satya. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Hi. So, yeah, how was it? How was the last week for you?
Yeah. I was just catching up with second week actually, so I haven't started with third week.
Okay, okay. You haven't started with the third week yet. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Were there any issues in the first, second week that did you like you'd face and you'd want to clarify as of now?
Nothing as of now, I guess.
Okay. So if you'd want, I would majorly cover the third week's essence in this
Hmm.
session.
Okay.
So yeah, I was just going through all of that, and I have got like a few activities for you to do as well today. So
Okay.
if you just get any doubts in between, any problems, any questions, just feel comfortable to pause me in the middle or ask it, like ask
Okay.
away, whatever you
Sure.
feel like. Okay.
Okay.
So I'll just share my screen for you. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, the third week that we are into majorly talks about how do we go about doing an ethnographic research. So the first 2 weeks were basically on the essence of ethnographic research. They were majorly talking about what is ethnography, what do we do in an ethnographic research, what like who are our participants, why do we even care doing an ethnographic research, where is ethnographic research applicable, and all that stuff. So and also there were various fundamental concepts that were being covered, the fundamental concepts being related to ethnographic research in general, and those were somewhat quite broad enough that would also go about into various other methods of research as well. So that was one thing, but once we have all those basic concepts, fundamentals correct in our head, it is really important that we see how do we go about doing this. So the theoretical aspect is one, but then when we think about doing something called an ethnographic research, how do we go about it? So the basic idea of doing an ethnographic research, as I was just uh, telling, was basically the fieldwork and the participants. Without these two aspects, there is literally no scope or no point of discussing an ethnographic research as a research method. So, in that sense, the two major things of knowing the context, one, and knowing the participants is really important. So, while designing, so the stage where we design our research is it's really important to first get to know about these two things, right? So if you don't know about these two things, that then becomes really difficult to go forward about any aspect of ethnography. So while we design our research, we will go from the very beginning to like the later stage of ethnographic researches. We cannot actually just tell what will actually eventually end the ethnographic research, because majorly we do not say that there is no end to research, because there are always questions that are kept hanging at the end in all sorts of research that we see, that we do, and all of that, because there are several questions unanswered in this world. So we cannot just say that there is an end to any sort of research, but I will sort of say that we might have found answers to our questions. So we try to articulate the nature of knowledge we are seeking first. So I was just thinking and just understanding by the week three was that while we first think of maybe doing a research, not only ethnographic but any other sort as well, we just think that where do we want to do it, Where in the sense, not the ground but the area. So basically, area of research, like uh, you might be interested, like you're into product design, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
So yeah, so you might be interested in trying to know how certain like a certain type of a product um, maybe affects a certain community. So in that sense, you're interested in something that you really want to know, and then you're trying to seek answers for that. So in that sense, it is very important to be very clear about what you want to know from the research or the study that you're doing. um, and it is very important to articulate everything in research. So in ethnography, because everything is very descriptive, like um, in some researches, like in the quantitative ones, it is very important to gather data, analyze it, and then articulate it. Other So there is just one aspect when we come to the analysis part, in the quantitative research, there the articulation works more. But in researches like ethnographic methods, it becomes very important to think about articulation from the very beginning, because you are going, say for example, you are going to some uh, remote area, okay, and or a rural area where you want to know about certain community, like whatever community you want to know about. um, and when you start documenting it, you have to be very very particular about the words that you use. So in that sense, that is basically because first you do not want uh, to be judgmental about the community that you are trying to learn about. Secondly, uh, it is you who are actually trying to bring the reality, or the I wouldn't say reality in that sense, but bring the knowledge of that community to the mainstream, right? So it becomes very important that you do justice to that community, and you try your level best to explain the maybe a situation or scenario of that community to the normal people. So the articulation aspect is very important. uh, so first we know that the nature of knowledge means that whatever that you want to know about from the field, you just get the idea that I maybe just want to know how, like a product name A has an impact on this remote community. Then you have to write it in a sense that the like others, maybe the readers of your research, get the clear idea about what you're trying to know and what you're trying to actually dissipate once you're done with the research. Then we decide on the tools and methods. So once we're clear what we want to do, what we want to know about from the field, it is really important to see that what, instruments, or maybe what ways do we incorporate in our research so that we get to the answers. Once you get the objective, the domain, the question in your mind, then you need to know that how, like what procedure you're going to go through so that you get the answers. So there the tools and methods come into picture. We will talk about these in detail all through, but here I'm just going through the flow chart, maybe. It's not always a linear flow chart when it comes to research, but it's somewhat how we should go about it, because the planning part is really important. Now when we consider the tools and methods, it's then we need to see that we also consider the people, places, and the activities we learn from. So again, these people and places were the main concepts of doing an ethnographic research, because people guess the participants and the place, the context also includes the activities that they do. So, and obviously these activities are like everyday activities. You have to understand, you have to record, you have to think about every activity that these people may do. So you need to consider that as well. And next, once you think of all that, you need to also see that if anything, like any sort of study similar to yours has been done in the past or not. It is really important because uh, when we just start our research journey, it feels like there are a lot of questions that are unanswered in this world. But sometimes what happens is, whenever you think of a research problem, it might be a lot possible that you might find something very related to that already on the web. There can be some paper that has already addressed that issue. So you need to be very sure about that, how your research is going to be different from the earlier researchers. And also, that if you are new to that arena, so for example, like if you're new to ethnography, it becomes really important to read ethnographic research in your area, so that you get the essence of what all you need to do through the study. Also, it's not that you are going to replicate any sort of things from that study. You're not going to even do anything similar from that study, but just that you get that inspiration that you should get once before you go to the field, obviously. So it's always
One
suggested.
quick question.
Yeah, yeah.
This is about literature review, right?
Yes, so we'll come to that. The knowledge that already exists. This knowledge includes literature, and that we'll be reviewing while
Okay.
we
Okay. Okay.
do it. So, yes, and that is one aspect of the knowledge that already exists.
Okay.
There are various other methods as well, in which you can explore the knowledge that already exists. But yeah, literature review is majorly what we do. Like every time, every research has that. So, yeah, finally, the context that our study will be situated in is really important. And every time, like ethnography, whenever you hear ethnography, you'll hear the word context every time. So, it's like ethnography has this word context attached to it all through. Wherever ethnography goes, context goes. So, it's going to be that every time. Now, yeah, groundwork is done, and then you think, like when we start thinking of doing the study and planning the study, for example, so it becomes, yeah, really important that you ask certain questions, because it's not that certain questions to anybody else, but certain questions to yourself.
Okay.
Because so it's not that you're always doing a research for yourself. Majorly PhD scholars, researchers, or maybe faculty members or anybody, they might be doing research in their own interest areas. So they might just have that intrinsic motivation of doing the of ethnographic research or research in general. But it's not always the case, because many companies, many organizations have started doing research on their own, and they assign research targets to their employees. So there it becomes a different concept of doing an ethnographic research, where they have to sort of find answers to questions that are important for their company or organization. So that is again different. But yeah, all in all, if you're doing it for yourself, you need to ask these questions for you. If you're doing it for somebody else, you need to ask these questions to them. So while designing the study, again, the first thing that becomes really important is that what are we seeking? The knowledge, the nature of knowledge that I just talked about is uh, what is that you want to really know from the field, and why, obviously. So generally, ethnographic research is something that is really time consuming. Also, it takes a lot of your efforts. It takes a toll on your maybe routine or whatever, in that sense, because you are always in the field. You will always find yourself finding answers to questions, or maybe just trying to understand why people behave in a certain way, or why they're performing certain activity in a certain way. So it is really important that you should be interested, or you should be motivated to do an ethnographic research. So the
Okay.
why aspect is really important, because if by any chance you lose that motivation, or you lose that interest from that topic, ethnographic research just stays there. It doesn't go anywhere then, because it requires all your attention, all your focus, all your interest to be there in the field, in order to find questions, because there are very deep rooted questions that have very deep meanings, and you need to just not only see or understand what the participant is telling you, but also what they are not telling you. So when it comes to finding or thinking of doing a research that that can be of somewhat ethnographic in nature, it becomes really important that you're very interested in the topic that you're choosing, and you will not lose interest midway.
Okay.
So yes, that is there. Then again, what is the relevance? Now, there are various things that we think are relevant. uh, the relevance need not always be with respect to the society or to the mankind, humankind in general. It can be relevant to you.
Okay.
So, doing a research on maybe a certain community where you are maybe, for example, assessing that how a certain product influences their everyday life, that is relevant because you have built that product and you want to see that my product is bringing about a change in their lives or not. So that is relevant to you. That may not be relevant to others, but it is relevant to you. So there it stays. But you have to be obviously very sure about that this research is relevant to you, or maybe for uh, the humankind, mankind, or maybe just for a certain class of people. So
Okay.
when we talk about like in the videos you'll see certain examples. There are a lot of case studies that are discussed in the videos of week 3. So uh, it talks about like Nina ma'am talks about analyzing uh, just a scenario where the researcher is interested to uh, understand how like kids basically aged from 6 to 10 play, what notions they have of the word play.
Okay.
So in that context, it becomes really relevant for the researcher to know about how children like how children hold perceptions about playing, and what they think about anything, maybe their environment, their partners, their uh, what do you say, fellow children, about playing together, or having those notions of how do you play together. So that is all was relevant to her, because she was trying to understand all of that, so that she can build something, or maybe design some games for them that are interesting to them. So
Okay.
in that
So
sense,
in this scenario, the major part will be about like it kind of overlaps with psychology, right? Like,
Which one are you talking about?
uh, especially for the kids section,
Yeah.
because when you study their behavior, it becomes more like a psychology.
Yes, but again, this can not be just you know called uh, psychology, or maybe just something like that cannot be just narrowed down to one domain,
Hmm.
because when you're talking about how they perceive, it becomes psychology. Then you see how they interact with their peers, it becomes sociology.
Okay.
Then if you see how they interact with the toys that they are playing, then the design aspect comes into picture. So
Hmm.
ethnography basically includes a lot of domains together. So unless you're quite um, you know quite sure that you're targeting only the psychological aspect of the students, or sorry, the children, uh, until then it doesn't narrows down to one domain.
Okay.
If you really want to narrow it down, that's fine, that works well. But if you really do not want to do that, then even that is that would work well, because there are a lot of aspects that work together. So interacting with the peers will eventually have some effect on the child's psychology. Uh,
Hmm.
Maybe interacting with peers or interacting with even elders, for that matter, would do that. Also, using a certain toy, playing with a certain toy will have an effect on the psychological aspect again. So all of these things cannot be just isolated to one part. You have to have a broader consideration of things so that you get to deeper answers. So
Okay.
that is where it becomes
Okay.
complex. This is where ethnography becomes complex.
Okay.
So yeah, so once you know what you're doing, then you know how relevant it is to you and for anybody in that sense, then it becomes of the most important part of the ethnographic research section, that would you even use ethnography as a method in this
Okay.
study. So
Hmm.
um, now everything that we might think of doing would not eventually move towards ethnography. So many designers might just want to see the efficacy of their product. So what they will do, they would just go to the participants who like whoever people are using the product. They would just map out their sample, ask people, or maybe interview them, then observe in certain controlled setting, and then just record their observations, analyze the behavior of the participant with the product, and then finally like writing down, mapping out the observations that they have from the study. So there are and when we talk about if we are even doing an ethnographic research, it is of prime importance that we see that if we are doing, like if we are calling participants to our place, and we are asking them to use maybe our devices, our products in a controlled environment of ours, that is not ethnography.
Okay.
Again, going to the context is ethnography, no? So in that sense, if you really want to do something that has somewhat majorly uh, quantitative aspect associated to it, like for example the efficacy, you're measuring the efficacy of your product, so then maybe you might not want to do an ethnographic research. Again, in certain aspects, maybe like for example, yeah, if you want to understand that maybe there is a certain course on Coursera, you want to and you have built that course, uh, designed that course, you just want to see that how is it performing, maybe. Then you just go to the students who have taken up the course, ask them, how it's been going, and then you're done with it. You do not need to go to their context, see what they are doing with the course and all that. It just stays with the participant in you. So that doesn't happen again in an ethnographic research. So there are questions whenever you think about doing a study or designing a study. There are various questions that you might think you'd want to answer, but not all of them, or maybe none of them would be answered from ethnography. So ethnography is something where you really want to understand a lot of other things, and not just conclude to one or two things. So that is where ethnography occurs. And then you need to decide that after all of those things, after deciding a certain concept that you'd want to work on, if ethnography will really make any sense. So you have to think about that. Then, yeah, what prior knowledge exists is again very important, as we have already discussed. Like literature review, we do literature reviews. So you have to just, like, for example, many researchers these days aren't just, you know like restricted to a domain. So basically, like, for example, I'm doing research on mathematical games. I might not just want to restrict myself to mathematical games. I just want to move to educational games, all in all, overall. And then I just might do not want to remain to games. I might just want to go to mathematics learning in general. So in that sense, you once you think of a problem that you'd want to maybe address through your research, you have to gain a lot of knowledge of what is all being done in the past about that. This is really important because, one, if you do not have enough background of that domain, it becomes of immense importance that you gain the background first and then move on from with the research. Secondly, with all the prior knowledge, you get a pedestal where you start your research from. So maybe, yeah, like you think about like maybe analyzing the everyday activities of a certain community, and then you find out that some work has already been done in the historical aspect of that community, or maybe some researcher has already talked to that community about their everyday problems and maybe problems associated with the state. So in that aspect, then you'd want to know other things, not that which have already been covered. So that aspect stays in. And finally, then we what do we hope to learn? Because like all of doing all of whole research is again a very time consuming concept, a very effort taking concept. So then you would really try to understand what objectives you have in mind before you go to the field, because you have to be very clear of what you really want to observe, what you really want to understand about. And then we think about how do we engage and learn. So basically, in an ethnographic context, you have to be very sure that you engage in the context well. Like engaging in the context, as I said last time, was that you do not just sit and observe. You do not just talk. You do both. You stay there for some time, get the essence of what is all is happening, and then talk to people of why certain things have happened. So like if you're actually observing, say for example, in a remote village, you're observing that people are walking barefoot to fetch water from a distant well. You need to know, you've been observing that every day they're doing it in the same manner. Then maybe like observing it for a few days, like 3-4 days after, you go and ask them that what that why do you go to such long distances to fetch water. uh, have you not ever tried constructing a water body, or maybe just protested to get a water body near your homes? So that aspect you'll only get once you talk to people. Then talking about the access, so do we have access to that sort of context, because what happens is, many a times people really want to know about a certain community, maybe about a certain problem, but they do not really have the access to it. Like for example, if you really want to do uh, certain research in Lakshadweep, you might not be able to go there and do a lot of ethnographic research, majorly because um, you need a lot of permissions to go there in the first place. Then you might really want to get a lot of permissions to talk to people there. You might not be very welcomed there, so that is something you have to actually see, the logistics part majorly, that if you can access your participants or not. And finally, what is the impact of the research? So majorly you'll be doing a research only when you think that it has a good impact factor. Without having any impact, or maybe having little impact on you, or maybe your career, or maybe society in general, you would not want to do a research, because again, research is a whole lot of you know what would I say, a thing to do. It's a huge thing to do. So that will take your energy, your time, so everything. So in that aspect, it is really important to see that what impact your research will do. Now, coming on to how do we, for in the first point, that is, what are we seeking? So basically, when we see what are we seeking, we really need to be sure about what question we want to answer. With respect to research, we call it a research question. Generally, while doing research, it is the first and foremost, and obviously the very important, most important aspect of the research becomes the research question, because everything that you will do after this will be based upon the research question. So like for example, we in a PhD, you have this a joke that you always say to your peers. So whenever anybody asks anything about a method or maybe methodology in research, people generally tend to say that depends on your research question. So like everything you do, anything you do will always depend on your research question, because that is what you're trying to do. So yes, in that aspect, you can actually articulate, you really need to articulate your research question well, so that you get a clear idea what you want to seek from the field.
Okay.
In that aspect, research questions can be built in two ways. Maybe you can start with smaller questions. So like for example, you might, like for example, you had just one day, while going on a road, um, just observed that there are certain people who are working in the um, like in the garden, right?
Okay.
In public gardens or maybe parks. So what, you might just watch them one day, then you again you are going through the same route, and then you find them again the next day. And you found out that they always have this huge dustbin that is very away from them. So you always think that why not they just carry that dustbin all through, so that it becomes easier for them to always you know carry the garbage together and throw it right there. So that particular very small question of why do not they just carry the dustbin all through with them may help you come across more such questions. So like for example, maybe you just one day went to those workers and asked that why don't you just carry that dustbin with you all through. So you might get different answers. Like for example, they might say that it is quite heavy, we always think we cannot maybe just move it ourselves. Or maybe they might say that the municipal corporation doesn't allow us to take the whole dustbin all through, or we might just need smaller dustbin so that it becomes easier for us to collect everything together. So that one little question may make you move around a certain concept that becomes like a lot of more questions altogether, and then there comes the one nodal question that you want to really research about. So that one nodal question in this aspect might be that what are the rights of these municipal corporation workers? Are they, you know, can they do anything on their own? Do they have if they are feeling certain inconvenience while working, who do they report to? Are there any measures that are in welfare of these workers or not? So all these questions will again help you make one nodal question of what is the plight of these MCD workers. So
Okay.
that MCD with respect to Delhi, but yeah, municipal corporation workers. So in
Okay.
that sense, you can come from smaller questions to one nodal question, or you might have just one big question in mind, like you had that product of yours which you'd want, how that eventually works with people. So or maybe a certain community, like if you've like for example, let's be specific here,
Okay.
like you
I
have.
have one thing top of my mind.
Mhm.
Like one question that I thought like would be, it's still vague. I'll just put it through.
Yeah.
Uh, like the category of people is say slum. The school going people of the slum is the people
Mhm.
that I'm trying to understand, and I'm trying to understand like how factors like employment opportunities like Zomato, Swiggy, and all these small self-employable options
Mhm.
affecting their education.
Okay.
So will this be part of ethnography study or?
Okay, so you're talking about
So usually, like they don't have a steady goal or a focus towards education. Uh,
the slum people you're
they,
talking about.
yeah,
Okay.
majorly, and they tend to drop off midway. Like they don't even complete high school is the problem.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand that kind of behavior, like how it can be addressed or what can be done uh, to get them to complete their basic education.
Okay, cool. So actually, you've given a really nice example in this respect, because yeah, we were just talking about this, right? Thinking about one broad major question to begin with, like, and then moving on to smaller themes, sub questions. So
Hmm.
exactly, you like right now in mind, you have one concept that the children belonging to the slum areas do not generally complete their education, and uh, maybe eventually move to petty jobs,
Hmm.
right? So this is one very broad aspect that we are talking about, because right now we haven't thought about that, like where we would want to do a research, this research, and then what all other aspects we might include. So this is one broad concept. Again, when we think about taking it up as an ethnographic research question, we will obviously go to the slum area and try to find out how these children really live there. So, this
Okay.
is because this aspect of living in a slum is because we are trying to correlate it with something different, like the education of the children. We really want to see how living in a slum is actually affecting their school going behavior, right? So
Hmm.
in that sense, I think it would be very effective if we do an ethnographic research, and uh, it like moving, because the context here, the slum, is really important. Once we know that a context of like maybe like a field is really important, not just
Mm-hmm.
a context but a field is really important,
Okay.
then we really know that yes, here we might want to do an ethnographic research. We'll come to how we find out if we will be doing an ethnographic research or not. But here again, the broad research question you have in mind. Now, what we need to do is break it into sub questions, sub themes. So, like for example, you're talking about the school going behavior of slum children. So, we need to first like so we will be articulating it like what factors influence kids from slum areas to drop out of school, like till class 8.
Mm-hmm.
This will be a more specific question. Then
Okay.
we might also want to know that if female students are dropping out before the male students or not. That can be another thing. Apart from that, we might also just want to see if so factors again. The one thing that we that in the first research question that I talked about, the factors can include many things that might depend on the personal choice of the child, that can depend on the family condition, that can the family conditioning, not the condition, conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
Then it might also be the social aspect, the economic aspect. So all those things can come into play. But yes, then ethnographic research is the go-to solution for you to incorporate, because you need to know a lot about the field.
Right.
Yeah, so eventually this broad concept have to be broken down into 2 to 3 research questions in a study, because 2 to 3 are considered as feasible number of research questions that one can answer in a study, so
Okay.
that we do it. If we need to do an ethnography into this or not, we'll just come to that, right?
Okay. Okay.
So let's just build some research question. Okay, I'll give you a scenario where you might just think of how you can articulate a research question into this, or maybe one or maybe more. That totally
Okay.
depends on you.
Okay.
So let's go. So the scenario is that you once driving down a lane in the city, and like maybe for example Mumbai,
Mm-hmm.
and you found some women making the idols of Lord Ganesha with mud. Uh,
Okay.
Mud, or you maybe just think of it as clay.
Mm-hmm.
So you wish to buy some idols for your home because this is the uh, you just want to help them, and
Okay.
also you just thought that, so like these are such pretty idols, so I just want to take some home. And then you communicate with them, like while you are just shopping, you talk to them about some things. So you found out about their family's legacy of making idols. So like once you just were quite curious enough to know that why these women are making idols of Lord Ganesha only, and not why in not doing any other work. So you just started talking, and then you found out that it's sort of generational thing. So the woman's husband's father had been doing it, then his father had been doing it, then his father had been doing it. So you found out that these women were basically carrying out the labor so that
Mm-hmm.
the legacy would not stop.
Okay.
So
So,
here,
yeah. Okay.
so you may be interested in some of the concepts, like how did the art evolve over time. So while we talk about the woman's husband making the idols, or maybe herself making the idols, and then his father making the idols, so how did it change all over time? Were there any changes in the designs that they were making? Or maybe like it might be the scene that initially when they had started making idols, people the family members would not care about coloring the idols. They would just stay as brown, nice, beautiful idols, and they wouldn't color it because they just might not be that proficient enough in the art. Then moving forward, in the next generation might have started coloring the idols. The next generation might have tried adorning the idols with more, decorative items or things like that. So that we might just be interested in knowing. Other things that the customers that they have been seeing all through uh, their business since the maybe the grandfather, great grandfather. So how did the customers perception about buying idols have changed? How they had started demanding different things from them, like maybe earlier people might just wanted to have idols who were huge in size, because they had more space in homes before. But now they are always thinking of buying smaller little idols for their home, so that they can easily incorporate in the small mandir. So that can be one aspect. Then I'm just giving you examples, right?
Understood.
So
Yeah.
again, what all do they go through as they work? So yeah, there, this aspect is a whole different aspect, where which can open a huge avenue for you to delve into. So in that sense, they might be talking about that, how it is different in different seasons to work on making idols, because not always you get all the mud or the clay that you want. Then again, if the raw material isn't available, then what do you do then? Apart from that, there are certain peak days of the year when, like during Ganesh Chaturthi, obviously, that they have a huge amount of work to do. So they might see that their all the family members are helping them to make idols. Otherwise, the male members of the family are going to do certain agricultural activities and they are making idols. So those things can also be there. So with these things in mind, what research questions would you want to make
Okay.
about this? Yeah.
Okay. Um, First is how sustainable is this business would be uh, top of the mind question. Like, is it sustainable in the first place?
Okay.
Um, or is it a business for them, or is it something more than that, which is driving them to do this continuously, even though there is demand, irrespective of the demand?
Okay, let's just record these, because
Okay. Okay.
um, these are important with respect to your perspective. And obviously this perspective is going to be very different from mine, and obviously I haven't thought about this all through. And yes, because we will be like building more on this, so we'll just record these two, right? So how
Okay.
sustainable this practice of making idols is, right? Okay.
Yes.
Another one.
And what drives them to do this, irrespective of whatever happens? Because they have been doing for ages. They didn't stop.
Okay.
Like motivation factor or be it whatsoever. Like there should be something behind to keep them going, right?
Right,
Because we
exactly.
know for a fact that not everyday people buy Ganesh idol, especially a specific idol. So
Exactly. Yes.
and that woman is doing it all 365 days, then it means something to her.
Amazing. Yes. Totally. So, yes, these are quite two very nice research questions with respect to a scenario that we have. So, here we get an idea of how do we think about certain smaller aspect from a huge big scenario. So the scenario was very broad, you might have thought about n number of things coming from it. But since we talked about sustainability and the motivation factors, these two things that we have tried narrowing down to. So research questions are basically you narrowing down to you know, um, what do we say, enforceable parts of the research, or maybe implementation friendly parts. So if you have a whole of this scenario, it becomes very difficult to, go to the field and like see, like find about everything that they might be doing in a day, or um, you know uh, you might have an infinite number of factors to be, noted down and to be considered while you're talking to them. So with these two research questions in mind, if you go to the field, it becomes very easy for you to just focus on the major aspects, uh, things that you think makes the practice of making ideal sustainable. So you might just focus on that. You might just ask questions to them with respect to this question. Then the motivation factors is somewhat broad, according to me, because these factors will not only include the legacy part, but also their personal will. So they might be just enjoying doing this work all through. They might just not want any sort of motivation, that the motivation might be intrinsic. So that can also be there again. uh, Obviously the economic aspect is there. They really need to earn money so that they can run their households, make their children educated and all that. So these factors will be again broad with respect to, personal factors, social factors, and again this economic factor. But then in an ethnography we can, clearly list down certain aspects, so that is, we're quite sure what we want to see. Now, uh, having known what a research question is, how do we build a research question, we see ethnography as a research method. So, the first slide that I had in the last session majorly talked about ethnography as a qualitative research method. So, here again, what we see here, or majorly talk about, is do we really need to do an ethnographic research given a sort of a research question. So now I really want you to think of maybe one or more areas where you think an ethnography research would work. So basically, before doing that, you have already told me an area that might be very interesting um to do an ethnographic research in. So that was the
School going behavior of slum children.
right, exactly. Or maybe not just that. Let's go to the understanding part, right? Understanding the school going,
Behavior.
maybe enrollment uh, behavior of.
uh, Enrollment kind of largely depends on
Mm-hmm.
the family situation, kind, right? So I'm trying to understand uh, their mindset of dropping out, as in, given that the family is willing to put them into a school, but still they drop out.
Okay, okay then. Okay, then we are not doing the enrollment part, right? Then
Ah.
that becomes certain. That becomes sort of something that is focused on dropping off from school. So, but then we are not, doing it that way. That's fine, because we if that we are just analyzing the drop off, like dropping out behavior of children from school, then that becomes even more narrowed down. So that's fine. We are doing the school going behavior of children belonging to slums.
Okay.
This was one already. So yeah, do you have anything else in mind, maybe with respect to this?
Okay. Maybe a sub question of this,
Mm-hmm.
like, there. Uh, okay, I'm not able to put this as a question. Maybe I'll try to articulate it.
Yeah, yeah.
So there is a hypothesis like they do not have an attention span, uh, or maybe like they do not have a clear cut goal or long term thinking, and like that is one of the major reason for them to get distracted the most.
Okay, right. Hmm. Uh,
So
in that.
one scenario that I observed, like
Hmm.
in person, is there was a class session going on, as in it was a government school, open space school,
Mm-hmm.
and there was some kind of music, maybe a like the final death procession where they play the music in front.
Oh,
That was
okay.
going on outside this premises.
Mm-hmm.
And all these students started dancing in the middle of the class.
Oh,
they,
okay.
they do not have that kind, like they do not have a sense of understanding of what this environment is.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
They keep deviating, and they are like the most distracted is what I observe.
Okay. Hmm. That is again a really nice observation in the first place, because observation like these will keep you um, going with research, because once you have a certain concept like this in mind,
Hmm.
then it becomes really easy to maybe just come down to the feasible factors of how maybe you can just you know not if solve this problem,
Hmm.
because solving will come at a very later stage, because
Yeah, first I'm trying to understand like what
exactly, yes.
exactly they're going through.
Yeah, yeah, true. And obviously this behavior maybe or might be um, just restricted to children belonging to a certain slum, or maybe
Hmm.
a certain region,
Right,
because
right.
we cannot
Yeah,
say.
this is just one scenario. I cannot consider this as a
Yeah,
different
exactly.
sample size. Yeah.
True. So yeah, in that aspect, yeah, again, we can just write it as another
For
possible
solving a
area.
question, yeah, I thought this would be one example we can take.
Yes, yes. We are not concerned with the research question as of now. We are just thinking that if ethnography would be a research method good enough to move forward with this concept. So yeah, um, distraction of slum students in in a class maybe.
Yeah,
So
government schools could be more.
yeah. So obviously, because now your context has changed. So before, in the point number one that we were talking about, so understanding the school going behavior
Hmm.
might have might arise from their context of being in the slum, right?
Hmm.
So that might depend on their family, that might depend on their everyday tasks or whatever activities they do in the whole day. And also, yeah, uh, obviously, the school is of utmost importance here again, but the first area would have involved both school and the slum as their major context or field. But in the distraction aspect, it becomes more of school, of a classroom setting where
Hmm.
a student is there, and they're just being in that environment of a class, and
Hmm.
then it is more of a sort of what is going on in their heads, right?
Hmm.
Um if you really want, obviously you can go deep into it and see why the students are so uh, worked up in their heads. Why
Hmm.
are they like calm enough so that they can pay attention in the class, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
you really want to know about that aspect as well, then again the slum aspect would come into picture again.
Mm-hmm.
So then it totally depends on you how you would want to take it further as a method, and whatever more methods you might want to incorporate into this, right? So how would you want to go through both of these topics as research topics? So that is purely your choice. You might incorporate ethnography in both of them. You might not want to incorporate ethnography in one of them, or maybe none of them. So that
Okay.
is particularly your choice, and but that again will also depend on your research question. So once this is the broad areas you have defined, then we will be defining research questions on each of these. So
Okay.
that is where the basic idea of ethnography comes. So, yeah, now if we just look in the broad aspect of what we think the ethnography as a research method would help, in what areas would it help? Here we have come down to like just two examples of them. We'll just see broadly how ethnography can play a very important role in questions or research topics pertaining to these points. So whenever we want to understand how people see their world or a certain phenomenon, so this is the perception part of it. So whenever you might want to know how people think when they undergo a certain phenomena, or what they belief systems are a lot, are a, a huge area where ethnography comes into picture. That is another aspect which is broad enough to be researched about. So
Mm-hmm.
that aspect is there. This perception part is majorly important to people when they like, obviously this perception part is also important to designers as well. Like um, you might just think of or you might just have a plan, not an idea, but even a well laid out plan of building a product that you might think is revolutionary. But if you do not keep into consideration how people would perceive that product in their setting, then it would be very difficult for you to arise acceptability of that product with respect to different contexts. Given that there, like, every few kilometers the context changes, the people change, their preferences change, and also within a certain group these things aren't homogeneous. There's you'll barely ever find a group of people or individuals where they will have their preferences the same, or they might have the thinking processes as same. So all of that varies a lot as we go to the ground and when we see people. So whenever we want to know about the perception aspect, ethnography is the go-to solution. Then for investigating relationships, so many a times like we had talked about this relationship of the school going behavior with the slum concept. This relationship is also one aspect that invites ethnography as a method to be seen, because um, you might think of other research methods for trying to find out about this. You may just go and do a thematic analysis of this, but again in that you might not be able to go to the essence, or you might not be able to get the full idea of how children perceive schools, maybe, or what relationship they build between a slum and a school when they go to a school. So that is a very different concept, and obviously ethnography works very well here, because these relationships are again formed and maintained. So if you really want to know how this relationship had formed all through, you might again want to go and see how that works. And the maintenance aspect is, again, you always have to be present in the context to see how this, relationships like these are maintained.
Hmm.
For example, again, in that the research question that we have built for the women making idols of mud. So in that, the relationship of them with the with their profession is one thing that you might really be interested in, and you want to see how did they form that relationship, because it might be possible that before being married to that household they might not be doing the same profession, they might be employed in certain other profession, or they might not be working at all. So in that aspect you might be you know interested in that. And then how they have maintained it all through, we had already made one research question about that, the motivation factor, right?
Hmm.
So that is, again, relationship is really important where you can incorporate ethnography. Then to study human social activity. Now this aspect is like been we have all been talking about since the last week, that everything that, if you want to see everything what a community or maybe a certain section of a society does, how do they do it, why do they do it, what beliefs do they have behind it, and all that, then ethnography is the thing that you have to do. um, but the concept here is that this human social activity may not be like for a lot of people. So you might not just want to get this sense of how people work, eat, go to go to shopping or whatever. For a lot of people it can be for how the personal aspect of people is associated with it. So you might be interested in how socially they function, but you might also be interested how personal aspects are involved into their everyday activities. So that is, again, that ethnography will give you a very wide you know idea about. Then to explore about the identity. So identity is very important. Like um, um, it's sort of, identity, again, when we put it, it's how you identify people, right? What characteristics you focus on, huh? And what would you want to majorly see in a person. So this identity aspect is, again, your identity is different when you go to different settings. My identity is different when, like, when I'm talking to you, it's different when I go somewhere else, it's different. So it depends on the context and time again. So here it's how we define ourselves with respect to a part of a larger group. So in that sense, basically, it's always said that identity is always built by the society. It's not that uh, you might have an identity alone, but I don't think so. So it can be that you have a personal identity which you think you have, then there's another identity which others think you have. So
Okay.
it's sort of exploring all of them.
Hmm.
That in any aspect you want to explore about the identity, ethnography is there for you. So yeah, now once we know that yes, ethnography is there, and we will be doing ethnography because we might want to know about perception, we might want to know about relationships, human social activity, we might want to know about the identity of people. So then we are sure that yes, we'll be doing ethnography here. We have a research question, we are sure that the method that we'll be using is ethnography. Then is what comes into picture is the existing knowledge. So again, as we had talked about, uh, there are various aspects that helps uh, us when we are doing any form of research, not just ethnographic, where the existing knowledge helps us. So first of all, like when you'll go through the video, Anina ma'am talks about that uh, there are various aspects that you cannot predict before going to the field. There is a lot that you need to learn before you go to the field. So one thing is, if you have like no idea, you have like zero idea about what is going to happen when you'll be in the field, it'll be a tragedy. Because say for example, you are interested to know about a tribe um, who lives in a remote area of Chhattisgarh, for example. So there, and obviously you are not from Chhattisgarh, for example. You might be from Mumbai, right? So um, first you have not had enough experience of going to a rural or a remote area, for example. Point number one. Point number two is, you have like no knowledge about what these people like, dislike. Then you do not have much idea about their culture. Then you do not have much idea about how do they behave when they have somebody from a very different context approaching them, right? So you do not know that. So in that context, Nina ma'am gives an example that she had gone to, interview certain women in Rajasthan about a project of hers. And then what happened is that she got like a huge backlash, because uh, the male members of that family were really against like her talking to the female members of their family. And also they threatened to like break her camera as well. So in that aspect, it's really important that you, if available at all, if things are not available, then it becomes very difficult to understand about any field altogether. If there is literally nothing available about them, then you have no choice of doing anything such as a literature review. But if there are things available, it would be really important to maybe just go through sources and make yourself aware of the field before going to the field. So that aspect is yeah, important. Then because these experiences, yeah, the first point, that these experiences of other researchers will help you not do the mistakes that they might have done, right?
Okay.
We can identify what aspects of the subject have already been studied. Yeah, so the major like whenever anybody talks about literature review, about going through certain documents that have been already written about a certain concept, it is obviously seen that the novelty factor has to be there in your research. You cannot be just replicating a research again. So that should be there. Also, you might find that there like for example, um, you have found a research that had worked with the people, making idols from mud in the Gujarat region, but you haven't found any study that have covered people from Maharashtra region doing the same activity, or maybe involved in the same profession, right? Even in those aspects, the whole context changes, and the findings that you may have from the study will also change, right? So in that aspect, you can identify that here the context is different, and the Maharashtra region aspect has not been studied yet, so I really want to study that, right? um, it also helps identify new directions to research, right? So it can be possible, right, that you have actually planned some steps in your research, but there was just one aspect that you were missing through, right? So you might have actually planned that how you will interview the participants, how you will go and observe their setting, how you will, how much time you will spend in the field, how much you will time spend with them in different time of the day, right? So that you might have planned, but then again you might have forgotten that there's a certain festival during which you have to have uh, to be in the field, right? So that you get the context, and you get more information about that certain community in that time period. So then you just remember, oh yeah, I just forgot that this I have to be there on the field during this time of the year, so I will just go to that field again during that time of the year. So this is where you identify that this direction to my research is really important, which I really would want to include in it. So that helps. So existing studies offers insights and questions. They raise questions which uh, inform that how we look into the subject. So sometimes, like maybe just going back to these, once we have these two as the broad areas that we have in mind, when we start reading literature about it, we might see that there are already certain factors that people have enumerated in their research, which state that these because of these factors, students belonging to slums aren't able to pay full attention in classes, right? So you might what now what you might want to do is you might want to work on just one of that aspect and go deep into it. You might just do that. Also, you might want to say, for example, the earlier study was basically on the school aspect and not in the slum aspect, right?
Right.
So you might just change your field, and you might go to the slum and see that why you think the students aren't able to focus in class, because there are a lot of things happening at home. So they are just in that mind frame all the time. They are always worrying about their households. So that can be another thing. So there you see that you have new questions to answer, and you have different insights to offer. Then that becomes really important. And finally, it helps us come up with ideas on designing a research. So sometimes what happens is we have a research question, but we aren't sure how do we go about it, right? Also, we might not be very sure about that we are doing an ethnography, we are sure about that, but we might not be very sure that how should we go about it. We do not have much experience in doing an ethnography. This is our first time. So in that aspect, existing knowledge or earlier ethnographic researchers will help you map out certain ways in which you can interact with the participants, what questions you can ask to them, how do you make a rapport. So there's a concept called a rapport building in the field. What happens is, you have to, as a researcher, you have to make your participants comfortable with you, right? So that they can share their personal details, personal aspects, which you might which might be interesting to you, which might be valuable to you and to your research. So you have to build that trust with the participants. You have to make sure that they feel comfortable around you. They do not find you as an intruder to their privacy, or maybe as a foreign person who has just come to do research. So in that aspect, these researchers will tell you how to get that um, answer that you want from your research, right?
Okay.
So yeah. So basically, when we talk about existing knowledge, it can be done through secondary research and literature review. Literature review being the most widely used, which says that it is a comprehensive summary of existing research on a given subject. So comprehensive summary now is totally dependent on you, because um, there are various aspects that from your research question that you would want to focus on, right? So in that, you build your own understanding of how you would want to go through the literature review. So that comprehensive summary that you build is your style of doing the literature review. My comprehensive summary might be very different on the same research question, right? So I may be like referring to very different sources. I might be referring to very different papers all through. So this comprehensive summary of the existing research is very personal, right? It might depend on the researcher to researcher. Now, coming back to research questions, this is where we've built the research questions, right? So now we will see like how a research question allows us to bring about themes, sub themes that we were talking about. That once you have a broad research question, then you might have sub themes and themes from it. So that those themes and sub themes allows you to analyze what literature you would want to read about, right? So let's just go back to this one. Uh, uh, where was that? The scenario, right? So we had made these two research questions, which said, which first talked about the sustainability aspect of making idols, and the other was the motivation aspect, right? So, uh, what do you think? Like in the first research question, what do you think will be the factors, or maybe the keywords that you will be searching about in the literature review?
Okay.
So,
Uh, Geography based idol making would be the first thing.
okay.
Then I'd look into like there will be some prominent locations where uh, a majority of the idols will be made
Mm-hmm.
because there is not like like continuous demand in terms of idols.
Right.
It's only seasonal.
Hmm.
So obviously it cannot be like spread across a larger geography.
Hmm.
So I'll try to focus on what is the locations that these idols are being made, and uh, then like because even the business point of view, um, people know that at this place this idols will be sold, and they would
Okay,
have
right.
known this for a longer duration. So this geography will have certain weightage. So I'd like to know more about that in order to study the sustainability of that and why it has been uh, passed on to the generation will also be partially answered in that.
Okay. So yeah, now you have a major three, you know, criteria to actually look through the literature, right? So from the sea of literature that would be coming from, when the concept of making idols from mud is concerned, you'll find immense number of papers which will be talking about making idols from mud. But now, since you have narrowed down to three aspects, that one is, you will be majorly focusing on the geographical aspect, right? So you will be finding papers which talk about making, the concept of making idols in different parts of the country, right? Then in the second aspect of, how do they carry out their business so that it is profitable, right? They go to a certain market and sell it, where they might get the most price of for their idols. That can be one. So if you are talking about that aspect, then you will be majorly looking through literature that talks about what strategies do these idol makers you know uh, adopt when they want, when they go for, the selling business, right? Then finally, you're talking about the legacy part. So then you might just include few literature from uh, from the sea of papers that talk about how majorly, like for example, I'm just making it up right now because I really don't know the reality. So um, like for example, some papers may talk about that how a huge majority of idol makers are just taking the generational legacy forward, and moving on with their family business, and very few idol makers have taken up this job like on their own. They, yeah, like they want to do on their own, right? So those things are those these three aspects of your consideration allow you to select and pick papers from the whole lot of papers that talk about making mud idols, right? So this is how we assess a research question, think
Okay.
what all is important to us, and then we find literature to it. So yeah, we are actually coming, making our own way through research right now, through the
Okay.
ethnographic research, right? If you get it, we have made the research question. So like first we have thought of a broad idea, then we have made a research question, then we have come to sub themes, and then we have come to the literature review aspect. We have also actually seen if this ethnography is going to actually work in this in answering this research question or not. So yeah, we're coming forward, like, well done to us. Okay, and yeah, so after that, yeah, now we are done with reading a lot about whatever we wanted to do. uh, Now we think about the participants, right? So this is where, so if you're quite maybe even if you're just aware about what the pattern of a research goes, then you'll know that first you'll think of the broad area, write about the research objective basically, or maybe just the research problem, and then write about the research question, then move to the rational part, that why would you want to do it, and then finally you move to, we slowly come towards the methodology part, right? Methodology, where you talk about what methods I've incorporated in the study. So in that, the concept of a sample is very important, right? Which talks about like what population you have, what sample you have, that we say in research, right? So here the participants in ethnography is obviously the sample that that you'd want to select might not be a very rigid sample, because in ethnography we do not really say that, oh, we have conducted a study on 30 participants and we have recorded their answers about certain in with respect to certain questions. So we don't do that, but here we define the, like, the community. So if we are doing it like certain if you're doing it on a certain community, we define that some that we have gone to that place, and a group of people, we have interacted with a group of people through our study. So we might not really want to give like the exact number of the people that we have interacted with or things like that. um,
Okay.
but again, the major part that also is very primarily ethnographic is heterogeneity. So majorly whenever we do a research, yeah, for example, we talk about maybe like um, let's just take an example that if we would just want to see the efficacy of a certain course that was run in a class. So then we first do a pre-test, that we say that certain number these students have performed equally in this test, and therefore we'd be selecting this sample because of the homogeneity of the sample. So there are a lot of research methods that say that the sample should be homogeneous, right? There shouldn't be much variation within the sample, because that is that creates the standard of the research, right? So, but in ethnography, it's completely different. It says that as much heterogeneity you have in your sample, it is of immense importance in this one. So, this is because, primarily, majorly because we were talking about perception, we were talking about relationships, we were talking about human social activity, we were talking about identity. So if we are talking about these things, it is really important to go into, like, different aspects of them. You cannot just talk about one identity in a research paper and say that the participant thinks of them as this, but obviously nobody's interested in that. Again, also, if you do just want to go and say that the another community, the neighboring community finds this community in that light, they think about it this way, nobody cares, nobody's interested to know. The What we are interested to know is how different identities are associated with just one community, right? So that we get the wholesome idea of that community
Okay.
altogether. So this here, in ethnography, I am not able to recall if any other research method talks about heterogeneity with this force, with this weightage. Ethnographic research majorly talks that there has to be heterogeneity in every aspect, like with respect to caste, with respect to race, with respect to gender, with respect to what do you call, habits, that can be everyday habits, cooking habits, sleeping habits, buying habits, selling habits, all of that. And then again, uh, the variations across time. So now what happens is, some um, like some group of people might look quite homogeneous to you, which says that, like for example, that if we are trying to work with people who are involved in the mud idol making profession, right? So you might say that since these people belong to the same family, they have majorly the same aspects, right? But again, across time, so once you go in the morning to to their house, for example, you see that the women are making the idols and the men are at work, right? They are maybe working in an agricultural land or something, right? But again, when you go to their house during the night, you see that the idols are being now prepared or maybe completed through the meals, and the women are cooking food, right? So the change in context that you'll see from day to night will be very important for your study, right? So in that aspect, it is again of immense importance that you not just focus on the heterogeneity of the characteristics, like social characteristics or social economic status or something like that, but also you focus on how the context changes within time, how people change with time. So like for example, there is there is an instance in the video that talks about a particular street in Gujarat,
Okay.
Ahmedabad to be specific. So in the morning, it is a bustling area with all the um, shopping complexes, and people are going to shop there, and there's a parking space there and all of that. But at night, everything changes. uh, it's the parking area isn't there, the shops are all closed, but that area is now particularly surrounded by these remote eateries, which just go like they just vanish in the morning. So in the morning, you'll find the the shopping complexes context there, and in the evening you'll find the eateries context there in the same place, right?
Okay.
So that is how you have to take into account how difference in variation and differences and variations across time happen. Like for example, in the idol making community concept, the um, you know the business or also their activities or their routine, daily life routine, how it changes when it's like, for example, March, and how it changes when we come to September, when it's the main Ganesh Chaturthi festival. So that is huge. That's a huge change that one needs to really take into account. So that happens. Finally, when we are done with the participants, when we have found that we'll be working with this set of participants, we now need to see what tools and methods we can incorporate to, achieve our research questions, achieve answers to our research questions primarily. So now the nature of knowledge that we seek will clearly define what tools and methods we need. So the nature of knowledge, like for example, we had been thinking of, finding about the perceptions and relationships, then we chose ethnography as a tool, right? So that works. Then the comfort of our participants. Now what happens is, many a times, like, just I just gave you an example of how Nina ma'am had suffered in the context of going to a village in Rajasthan where they weren't allowed to talk to the female members of the family. So there, the comfort of the participants becomes a major issue, where you think you might want to, communicate with the female participants, but since they aren't comfortable with doing it, you have to might just to resort to talking to the male members, right? So in that aspect, you have to see that the interview aspect, you have to keep it for the males, and for the observation, participant observation factor, you can keep it for the females. You're not there, interrupting or interacting with the female participants, but just being there and observing what all is happening, right? Again, our own comfort is of really, of real importance, because there are sometimes very hard deadlines about the research that we might want to conclude, and sometimes you're working on a research project which is an ethnographic research project, and you cannot take, an extended amount of time to do the research, or also you have just limited funds to do the research. So that those factors also need to be kept in mind before we decide the tools and methods, right? It might also happen that you're from Mumbai and you think that you'll be doing an ethnographic research for people belonging to Jammu and Kashmir who are in the wool business, right? So there, you might just want to, go to that area and talk to people, but then again, you really do not know how would you go there, that because that is a remote area, you have no mode of communication and transportation to do that stuff. So that again works in your own comfort. You have to find out ways and methods to do that. Then, and finally, the practical concerns of time, place, and available resources is, this is what all we cover in the first three points majorly. So yeah, this is important because an ethnographic research, or doing an ethnographic research, requires planning beforehand, because this is again like a lot of time consuming, effort consuming activity which you have to perform. So again, now, these methods that we are talking about, that we'll be selecting, the tools we'll be selecting, uh, were based on the four factors that we have talked about. So again, going to the field, before going to the field, you have to answer these questions again, which says that which is acceptable, like what is the acceptable and comfortable methods that we can incorporate for our participants. So again, many places or many communities might not be very comfortable talking to you, right? You have to again build that rapport first, and then you might just seek answers to your questions. So in that aspect, if it is very difficult to, like I just gave an example of maybe a tribe from Chhattisgarh. If they are really unwelcoming a person from outside, it will become very difficult for you to, go and conduct a study there. uh, Again, whether we will have access to the spaces we want to study is again one thing. Like the Jammu Kashmir example, if something is some places like really remote and you cannot even go to that place, um, given the time constraint, given the mode of transportation constraints, then it will be better that you abandon the place, or might just move your research question to some other community, maybe undergoing the same business, right? So that can be done. Again, will it be possible for us to spend time in the area? So now, it's not that if you get access to just the community for a certain week, it might be possible that they may not welcome you for a longer span of time, right? And so that you have to plan everything, that if you are given just access to them for like 2 weeks period time, then it is better that you plan your research well, you plan your interviews, you plan your observations accordingly, so that and also sometimes there are not just interviews and observations, there are also interventions, right? Sometimes what happens is people just go there and try, play games with people, so that they can observe them in different parts of the day, so that they can see how people behave in certain aspects. So they try find out ways of spending time in the context. So with that, you have to, again, that you have to plan accordingly how much time the participants will allow you to spend time with them. Like for example, in one of the videos, there's a case study that talks about that a researcher wasn't was welcomed very warmly by a young couple who had like just married, but after a point of time in the evening, they'd want the researcher to leave because there was a caste sort of uh, view associated of that couple with the researcher, because they thought that if the researcher would be dining with the couple, they might want to know the caste of the person, right, of the researcher, because not all people would welcome people of all castes to dine with them, right? So then again, that depends how much time you'll be able to spend with the participants. Then, do we don't know the language? This is the, the most basic part that we would want. You cannot just go to a community and just talk in English and expect that they will tell you everything, because
Right.
one, barely they might understand or communicate in English, or even if they do, um, English or maybe Hindi is not a very might not be very a very comfortable form for them to express themselves, right? Um, the way people interact with others in their mother tongue, the way people are comfortable with interacting and sharing ideas in their mother tongue, that has no competition, no other language you can make the participant that comfortable in, right? So it is really important that you either learn the language or maybe have certain number of people in your group who know the language very well. So I'll tell you my personal experience. I do not know Marathi, but I have been to a very remote village in Maharashtra. So there I made sure that at least my group has one person who can effectively communicate with people. So I tried talking to people in Hindi, but what happened is, even though the participant wanted to communicate a lot, they weren't able to do, because they weren't finding the right words in Hindi, right? So there the gap always comes into picture. So that is what happens. So therefore we really need to make sure that we either know the language, or we take somebody who is proficient in that language with ourselves.
Okay.
uh, Now, again, so before going to the field, it's a lot important that we do some pilot. Now,
Okay.
pilot studies, yeah, obviously, like for everything, like we do pilot studies for literally everything that we do. So obviously in research, you cannot go in one shot. You have to have, a preparatory stage where you are actually experimenting with the context, with the field, with the participants, right?
Okay.
So and obviously you might have planned a very nice keeping everything into account, keeping all the diversity into account, flow of your research, but you might really not know what you're going to face in the field when you might just during the pilot you might just find that at that point of time the participants aren't available to talk to you, right? You might just find that the participants you might just go to the participants at some point of time where they are very tired, right? So that you have to see, and you cannot predict these things before, like, before going to the field. You have to have some sense of the field so that you can actually, perform a sort of, not a perfect, but there's no research that is perfect, but obviously, but of a considerable feasible manner, right? So now pilot is really important because it shows the hurdles already. You might not get surprises while you're actually doing the research on ground. You can, at least sense some hurdles during the pilot only. So while you engage with the participants and context, obviously, and then it helps you frame the research questions better. So what happens, like, it always, I guess it happens with every researcher, that you think of something, you think of a research question, you know the method that you're trying to incorporate into the field, but then what happens is you go to the field for the pilot and see that whatever you were thinking wasn't even there. So you go back, change the research question, think of another method, maybe. If not changing the research question, then maybe think of another method, and then going to the field. So then again, the feasibility part of the field at that time. Then it prepares us for the social and physical conditions of the field, right? Again, in ethnographic research, the social and physical conditions are of major importance, because the social aspect is obviously of major importance. You might not know that, a certain community will not let you talk to women of their community. So that you cannot, obviously you cannot predict otherwise. And in the physical conditions, right, so you might just think that before going to the field, you might just think that you'll be able to spend like 8 to 10 hours with the people, but you but you found out that it was very cold there, that you couldn't sit for long, right? So these things will be very clear in the pilot itself, and you wouldn't obviously get surprises. Then again, finally, the pilot helps us identify particular spaces or locations and phenomena to observe. So sometimes what happens is you think that, like in the slum example, you think that maybe going to the slum area altogether will give you, in-depth idea about the children that you are trying to research about. But what you might find that the people aren't very comfortable talking to you in the, street. They might be comfortable talking to you when you go to their homes, right? So that you have to see that where is the maximum output you can get from the participants, the location, the space, right?
Okay.
So that is there.
Okay.
Finally, the ethics part requires a lot of, this will be discussed in detail afterwards. But the ethical considerations have to be very much cared about, very diligently followed, because you are a foreign, person going to somebody's context. It is very important that you get all the permissions before you go. So a formal consent form is really important, that is, readable and understandable, comprehensible by the participants, so
Okay.
that they know what you are going to do with them, right? It shouldn't be the case at all that they do not know why you are here, or you are just, trying to get away with um, their concerns. It might be the case that you just go to people and you think that you are not going to ask any personal questions, but again, you are going to their context, you are actually observing them, you are going to their private spaces, in some ethnographic researches. So you have to be very considerate about that, and you have to communicate why you are there, to study the participants, what all information you will collect, where you will use that information. Everything has to be very clear and transparent in front of the participants, right? Then you have to ask the participants if they would prefer to be anonymized in the writings or research presentations. So what happens is, many participants do not want their identity to be revealed. So in that sense, you have to anonymize them, maybe give them false names, or maybe just if you're using their pictures, you might blur their faces so that nobody recognizes them. Also, it is of utmost importance that your participants agree to whatever you're going to seek from them. And it should also be made sure that if they would want to move away from the they want to withdraw their consent from your research, they should be able to do that midway as well, right? So that should totally depend on the participant.
Okay.
Okay, any questions before I just ask you a few questions?
No, you can ask me.
Okay, so let's just, I've got just three today.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. Our area of interest and its relevance to others can determine a research question. Okay. The research question helps us to figure out the research methods. So, what do you think it is?
Others can determine our research questions. Yeah, true.
Yes. So, because your area of interest is there, relevance is there, so that has to be true. And obviously, like everything depends on research questions. So, every method that you would incorporate have to be answering the research question, right? So, that is true again. So, in ethnography, the researcher's presence does not affect the participants. The ways in which researchers engage with participants does not influence what the knowledge is produced. What do you think about that?
Affect the participants. Ideally, it shouldn't, but does it not? I'm not sure.
Okay, so while we'll go through the week three videos, there's one incident that Nina ma'am shares. She says that they had invited a few participants to their research lab to just test their product. So maybe I think that was a digital app which they had developed, and they were thinking of you know inviting people over and see how they interact with the app, right? So basically that happens with a lot of industrial research. So what so inviting participants to your own context and then looking into how they behave is very different. So what happens is the participants are very conscious about your presence. They
Mm-hmm.
always see that you're observing them. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so they perform very differently, they behave very differently.
Okay.
The people who they are researching might use the app very differently when they are at the comfort of their home, while they were using it while being monitored or there. So the presence of participants definitely, like 100%, puts an effect on the
Okay.
participant. The researcher's presence puts a lot of influence on the participant. Uh, Whatever you will do, even if you'll be the most friendly researcher, but again, even your presence would make the participant conscious about their activities. It's not
Okay.
that you will not be able to observe 100% natural aspect of the participants. You will definitely observe something that you have put an influence. So
Okay.
that
Okay.
is one aspect which you cannot control, obviously, but you should be just aware about.
Okay.
So that this is false.
Okay. Makes sense.
Okay, this one is basically on the this question is basically on one of the case studies. So since you
Okay.
haven't gone through the week three, that's fine. We will take this up in the next lecture.
Okay. Okay.
So that is not a problem at all. So if you have any questions with respect to any concept of ethnography, just let me know.
Okay. One question is that, like, uh, when in my like this slum students school going behavior,
Mm-hmm.
so when we are finalizing on the question,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the environment should be one environment or it can be multiple environments. The
Again, so that totally depends on you.
okay.
As a researcher,
Makes sense.
you have full freedom to
Okay.
take up any context as your environment, any field you wish to take up. Just that you have to, like, whenever you're doing a research, you have to think in the sense that you have to justify every step of yours, right, to the research community. So whatever environment or whatever context you select, you just make sure that you can um, you know defend your move very well. You have to have enough rationale behind selecting a context, selecting an environment, and you have to have a set of reasons why did you select that context. So even if you select multiple, that is fine, but you just need to be sure enough why you're selecting those, and you have to, like, defend those with respect to your research questions, that because your research question asks that, it is really important to see that aspect. So yes,
Okay.
you have to, like, think about that.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Great.
Any more questions?
Yeah, that's it for this week, I
Okay,
guess. Yeah. Thanks a
cool.
lot. I was the only participant. You kept the energy level so high. Thank you.
Yeah, but this one-on-one conversation has, like, helped a lot to me, in the sense that I get to get personal sort of queries from you, so that I can help you through them. Also, it if you wouldn't have been there, I would be just explaining things in the problem solving session and then uploading it. So
Okay.
yeah, I think if people will be watching this problem solving session, they'll be they might have similar concerns like you did. So that might help them a lot, I guess.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that was amazing talking to you, Satya.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Likewise.
take care. Just next week, if you have any more concerns from whatever week, like week one, week two, week three, just let me know in the next one. And yeah, Go through the videos, just that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
Yes.
you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. It was nice talking to you. Bye.
Yeah. Likewise. Bye.